Oh, this. Otherwise, you're on the book. With that quality, you can get any better. Hey, on the chair, stop doing that. Oh, you put mud on my book. The settings. How do adolescents think about risk and reward? After reading this chapter, you'll be able to describe the social, cognitive, and biological influences on adolescent decision making, understand the risk and reward systems of the brain, and how these can be influenced by different contexts, evaluate the roles of peer groups, executive functions, and sex differences in adolescents' behavior. Introduction. In this chapter, we explore how adolescents think about risk and reward, how they act on these impulses, and what motivates their decisions. Sometimes adults are baffled by the seemingly reckless decisions teenagers make, but as we will discover, adolescence is not a particularly dangerous stage of life, nor are adolescents indiscriminate risk takers. Risk comes with benefits as well as costs. Adolescents take risks and seek rewards under certain circumstances, and they often do so for understandable reasons. Adolescents measurably feel reward more intensely than any other point of their lives. They become particularly sensitive about their social status, and their risk-taking is a necessary part of becoming independent. We will dive into the evolutionary, neurological, and social factors that underpin some of this behavior. By understanding the reasons why adolescents make the decision they do, we are in a better place to empathize with the demands placed on individuals during this period of transition. How do friends influence risk-taking? How does the teenage brain process rewards? And how do rapidly developing higher-level thinking and planning skills affect decision-making? Mishaps and misadventures. This is a belief that teenagers engage indiscriminately in risky behavior, making adolescence one of the most dangerous times to be alive. But is this true? One rather stark measure. Rate of traumatic brain injuries, TBI, by different ages groups for males and females. of a risky lifestyle is the likelihood of dying. Concerned parents might be reassured to know that adolescence is actually one of the safest times to be alive, with a lower mortality rate than either young infants or any other group older than adolescents. ONS 2021. What is revealing, though, are the kinds of risks that adolescents take. They read like a list of self-inflicted mishaps, misadventures, and tragedies, car crashes and other transport accidents, alcohol and drug overdoses, injuries from fire, weapons, exposures to severe heat and cold, physical confrontations and extreme sports, and so on. Curtin et al. 2018. Guthold et al. 2019. Among adolescents, accidental injuries are the leading cause of death, claiming more lives than disasters, self-harm, and nutritional and maternal health causes. GBD, Adolescents Mortality Collaborators, 2021. A less binary measure of risky behaviour than death is the chance of receiving a traumatic brain injury. Figure 13.1 shows a rate of TBIs being different age groups for males and females based on a sample of 343 Australians from New South Wales, Tate et al. 1998. While the overall incidence is low, about 0.4%, TBI among adolescents are relatively higher than among all other age groups, with 15 to 24-year-olds making up 40% of the TBI survivors, but only 15% of the population. Also note that across the entire lifespan, males have a higher risk of TBI than females. A six-sex difference we will return to later on other measures of risky behaviour, such as unintended pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. Adolescents are also overrepresented, and in general, adolescents are poorer at judging the long-term consequences of their actions compared to with adults. Rayner and Farley, 2006, Santelli et al., 1999. Key point: adolescents have a lower mortality rate than those in most other stages of life, but are more likely to be accidentally injured and to engage in risky behaviour, and they are poorer at judging the long-term consequences of their actions. Moving on and fitting in. So what is behind these risky choices? As with other aspects of development, there are two ways of answering this question: the long-term view and the short-term view. The long-term view starts by noting that we are not the only species where adolescents show a marked change in their behaviour. Across a wide range of mammals, animals, and the cusp of adulthood show a significant increase in novelty and sensation-seeking behaviours. Kelly et al. 2004. This greater interest in new sensations naturally leads individuals away from the safe and familiar environment of the family towards striking out on their own. For most mammals, greater independence means finding food for themselves, establishing their own territory, taking their place in the social hierarchy, finding a mate, and starting a family of their own. Spear 2000. By their nature, these behaviours involve some degree of risk. Crucially, a social network of similar aged peers will be more important in helping an individual to achieve many of these milestones than their families. So the relative importance of peers becoming greater through this period too. For most social animals, being kicked out of a group is a life-threatening ordeal. and for a range of mammal species, an adolescent without a peer group is as good as dead. To guard against this, adolescents busily build alliances with similar age peers, whom they are going to need in the future. Key point: novelty and sensation-seeking behaviours with greater risk-taking and peer influence are seen in a wide range of species on the cusp of adulthood, suggesting a shared evolutionary explanation. In humans, adolescence is also a period of increased self and social awareness, the attachment centre of gravity that children have established with their primary caregivers in the early years, chapter 2, is the beginning to pivot towards the peer group. The upside of this is that teens begin to invest in their relationships that are going to become more significant as they grow up. Close friendships with a small number of trusted peers appear to be predictive of an increased sense of self-worth later on in life, and to be protective against anxiety and depressive symptoms. Nah, Attell 2019. The downside is that during this period, adolescents become hypersensitive to falling out of their peer group or being ostracized. Sebastian Attell 2010. In Chapter 8, we explored how sensitive we are to group membership and how our past survival depended on working collaboratively with others in small groups. Engelman and Tomasella, 2019. This ancient bias is played out in less life-threatening modern-day contexts, but is felt no less intensely relative to younger children and adults. Adolescents experience social interactions and feedback from others with greater passion, making them sometimes more easily irritated, upset, and moody. Blakemore, 2008. This means that in a very real and measurable way, adolescent relationships with the peer group, even if it's just one other person, feel like matters of life and death. In his book, Brainstorm, The Power and Purpose of Teenage Brain, 2014, Daniel Siegel puts it this way: teens sacrifice morality for membership when the choice is between social ostracism or ethically iffy decisions. Teens judge that it might pay to blend in and debate the moral consequences later. Key point: adolescence is a time of investing in peer relationships, heightened sensitivity to group identity, and emotional intensity.